And we are back on Open Line. I'm Chuck Long here with Kevin Kennedy from the Kennedy Law Firm. It is Ask an Expert night. We are asking the expert in the legal field. He's been in the legal field over 34 years. His reputation is known around the state, one of the top law firms in the state. And I tell you, Kevin, every time I'm here, I get an education. It really is. It's always a pleasure to be here because I learn so much.
I love to even talk and share because, you know, that's a technique I teach the young lawyers that come through there. I'd say, okay, let's discuss it with the client. Well, you've already gone over it. I said, go over it again, because it jogs your mind. And if there's an idea that comes, then write it down. One of the secrets at the Kennedy Law Firm, we try to create an environment of creativity. And so, well, how do you get creative? And you know, I represent songwriters, musicians, publicists, all kinds of people like that. And I'm fascinated with how their minds create. Well, you're talking about it. You're thinkers, you're talkers, and these ideas just seem to come and write them down, and then you can explore those, and you could even research those, and it'll give you options. So they will not get you and I quickly. They may get us, but they will not get us quickly, because we will have had an exit strategy, and we will figure out many times how we'll settle the whole matter.
Right. And again, to me, we've said this a couple of times already this evening, but knowledge is power, and that's the important thing. That's a thing that you need to remember, and that's what a lot of us are getting here this evening, myself certainly included. Our lines get busy. You see the number on your screen. If you do have a question or a comment about some legal situation, a legal matter, this is a great opportunity for you to get those questions answered, and the number is 737-7587. We're going back to the lines right now. Steve is on the line with us. So, Steve, good evening, and do you have a question or a comment for Kevin?
Yes.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Steve.
Hello?
Yes, you're on, Steve. So do you have a question or a comment?
I got a question. I went to Tennessee Men Clinic, and I gave them $1,600 to help me out.
And Steve, you may want to turn your I can hear it in the background. You may want to turn your television down.
I got a question.
Okay.
Okay. I got a question. I went to Tennessee Men's Clinic. I went to Tennessee Men's Clinic, and I gave them $1,600. They're supposed to help me, right? But none did help me. So I asked for my money back. I can't get my money back.
Well, here's what gets down. Under Tennessee law, a contract is called a meeting of the minds. And so there has to be consideration, and then, of course, you paid $1,600. Now, they made certain representations to you. If they didn't follow through, then that's a breach of contract. If you say they made material misrepresentations, it could even borderline to get to be fraud. You know, you say, hey, I can fix this, no problem, give me $1,600. But again, you need to look at your contract, see what kind of guarantees. You could sue them for breach of contract, breach of warranty, material misrepresentation. There's a breach of implied warranty, and it could be a breach of express warranty. You have those rights to bring that lawsuit. Also, you can call the Tennessee Department of Consumer Affairs, turn them in, and if they're a medical situation, there's the Tennessee Department of Medicine, and you can file a board complaint with them, and they have the right to investigate and revoke their license. So there's a lot of things you can do, but I think the word to the wise out of your circumstance is have a good understanding when you go in. Do y'all guarantee a money back if this does not work? If they say yes, show me in writing where you're making that representation and you have something there, and that'll give you some leverage. Obviously, if you don't have it in writing, I heard a lawyer say, well, if it's not in writing, it was never said. What he meant was this: if you don't have it in writing, it's just your word against theirs. And the Bible says, by every fact, 2 witnesses established. So if I was confronted with that problem, I'd bring Chuck with me and say, Chuck, did you not hear that? And Chuck said, absolutely, there's no misunderstanding.
All right, well, so that's good to know. So, Steve, that gives you some options, so we do appreciate you calling in this evening. We're going right back to our lines. Line's busy, so we're going to Demetrius is on the line with us. Demetrius, good evening, and do you have a question or a comment for Kevin?
I have a question. If someone was in a facility, like a mental facility, and was assaulted by another patient and the staff was there, knowing that that patient was not supposed to be in that area, what could be done about it?
Well, obviously, when they are licensed and they're placing people in a mental institution, and they have the responsibility, it's a care. and they have the responsibility of the care of that person. If they were negligent and allowed someone to come in, or a patient that they knew or should have known would hurt another patient, they are liable. And yes, you could sue that person. What you would do, you have a right to sue that individual, but if they have a mental incapacity, you're not going to get anywhere. But it would be on the nursing home or that facility. They have the insurance and they have the responsibility, and you can bring a claim and probably negotiate one out with that.
Okay, well, that is good to know. So, Demetrius, we appreciate your call this evening. And, you know, I think a lot of times from a lot of the viewers that we've heard, you know, over the years, I think we have that almost mentality that, oh my gosh, if it's an insurance company or a hospital or some big corporation, it's the little guy
versus it's the David Goliath versus Goliath. Yeah. We've said it many times, and that's why when you say, what about the lawyers? They're the last vestige of hope. And if they can't bring justice for you, who can? And so, you know, people all the time, they talk lawyer jokes, but you know, every time I've ever employed lawyers, I've always loved my law, and I've enjoyed some of the greatest relationships, attorney-client relationships over the years. I love my clients. So if they said, do you really love what you do? I love to help people. It's just it's a way of life.
All right, we're going back to the phones, help some more people right now. David is on the line with us. David, good evening. Do you have a question or a comment for Kevin?
Question. If you're in Social Security and then you pass away, does your wife get the Social Security or vice versa?
Good question. A lot of gray areas. You need to get with the Social Security office. Here's something that I do, one of our techniques. You know, many times people call down there and they say, well, am I covered? Will I get this? The person will say no. I said, well, call again tomorrow. You'll get a different person. They say yes. Well, what is your name? What section are you relying on? So you're inquisitive, and you take that knowledge and information. First, you need to know how to gather it, and then you can go to the next level with it. But just because you call the DA's office and say, well, can you do this? And they blow you off, or you call the clerk's office and they say, well, you can't do that. Well, then you find out you could do it. So Social Security benefits are unique. I have a lot of people that call and ask about Social Security benefits. And so much of it, even for the benefits outside the death benefits, that's when you get Social Security disability. Your doctor controls someone. You say, well, Kevin, how are we going to get it? You're going to have a good relationship with your doctor. And if they think you're telling the truth, they're going to be inclined to help you. If they think that you're telling a lie, then they're going to stand back and say, I'm not going to put my medical license on the line for this. So, and if you got one, there's a personality conflict, go get another doctor.
There you go. Great advice. So we appreciate that call as well. So we are busy. We're going to go right back to our phones. Pat is on the line with us right now. Pat, good evening. And do you have a question or a comment for Kevin?
I do. My husband is a disabled Medicare patient with sleep apnea, and he has oxygen concentrator in the home.
Okay.
And last year he got really sick, was in the hospital a long time, and to come home he had to temporarily have the use of oxygen portable canisters in the car.
Yes.
And the company that I picked it up from while he was in the hospital, I signed an agreement to pay cash.
All right.
Each time. It wasn't run through the insurance company. And so we were paying cash for this, and they took my bank account information, said they had to have it on file, and I thought it was because I was leaving with their equipment.
Yes.
But when my husband got through with the temporary use of the portable canisters, they started making withdrawals from my bank account, and they also combined his home sleep apnea stuff with my bank account. They started putting it all together and say, we owe them a bunch of money. Well, I went to the bank and put stop payment on it.
Yes, you did the right thing.
I called and told them to stop, not to do that, and they kept doing it anyway. So the bank said that they would reimburse me and notify them. So now they've cut my husband off from his home supplies for sleep apnea.
Wow.
And they say he can't have any more until he pays this amount that they say we owe.
Yes, well, that's a perfect one to file a complaint on, because what they've done is they put your husband's health at risk, and they just out and out lied to you and misrepresented, and you're in the right. Now, how are you going to prove that? you know, if you had another witness with you. And, you know, you can always use this technique too. Many times if you called one, you can write a card back or a letter and say, "Dear Chuck, this memorializes our conversation of June the 3rd, wherein you said that I'm a cash-only payment and you took my credit card information only for this purpose, and there's no intention of you using that." Well, then we've got a paper trail to use, and you can use that with the credit card company and go back on them and say, "Hey, this was not legitimate, this was a fraud, and I want those charges taken off." Go to the bank, and they have fraud departments in both the credit card and the bank, and they'll correct it.
All right. Again, great to know. So, Pat, we appreciate your call this evening. So we're going back to the lines right now. If you do have that question or comment, though, I encourage you to get online with us. 737-7587 is the number to call. So we're going back right now. Earhart is on the line with us. Do you have a question or a comment for Kevin?
Yes, I do. Good evening.
Good evening.
I have a question about is cable, the prices. I have an issue, and I want to discuss with y'all.
Okay.
To see what y'all's opinion is. What's going on is, okay, they certain in Washington D.C. on C-SPAN, they had all the cable companies up there.
Right.
They were arguing over billing about the services, like if you have boxes,
yes,
equipment and stuff like that, and the overcharging and not overcharging. And now that you can get it on your cell phone, you get TV on your cell phone, and it's a whole lot cheaper.
Yes.
And why is that price cheaper on your cell phone than on your TV, and they charge higher? Can there be a lawsuit that somebody can win that they're having different prices? And I'll hang up and listen. Thank you.
Yeah, you know, we had antitrust laws that were placed into effect in the early 1900s because the big boys would get together and say, we're going to set the prices here irregardless, because they controlled the monopoly. And so it is a federal offense to price fix, and many big executives have gone to prison over the years for that very crime. So what you're talking about would be a class action lawsuit, and where they would put together a class and sue those companies. You know, over my lifetime, many times the cable companies have filed bankruptcy, and they've sought protection when they've been in that jam. So you never know, are you going to get anything out of them or not? But that's the good thing about having politicians elected of integrity, because you can go to your politician and say, this is the problem that affects your whole constituency. Will you investigate? When you put a congressional investigation on one of these cable companies, they've got a problem.
Okay, good to know. So again, I know that's helpful information, so we are glad that you called in this evening. A lot of you on the line with us. Stay on the line with us. Your patience will be rewarded, because we'll get to those calls. We do need to take a break, but back with more Open Line right after this.